the first episode of the year, first fight card of the year, 2023, off to a good start. And I mean, like all fight fans, we were chomping at the bit, having a little bit of our withdrawals here. It's been, 4 weeks since we had the event. Weird situation where the last event of 2022 was a Sean Strickland main event. First event of 2023 was a Sean Strickland main event. Guy's a dog, man. Just staying active, keeping himself relevant, doing himself favors with the company, and I think, it's working out for him.
I definitely think that, I mean, me and you were just discussing this literally right before we started, so it's a perfect jumping off point, but I think he has done a good job of getting a nice fan basis for himself, but mostly being polarizing, right? It's not necessarily that a fan base, or at least notoriety, I guess maybe a better word, because like you either love him or hate him, but you know who he is for the reasons by which you love him or hate him.
Exactly. I mean, he's kind of a staple at the top of the division at this point. Like, he'll forever be tied to Alex Pereira, for better or for worse, but still, that was a big moment. I mean, he's fought Cannonier, who just fought for the belt. I mean, he's as relevant as any middleweight not named like Izzy or Alex, or I guess technically Jared, even though myself and many other people had him winning that fight.
What about old Whit? Robert Whitaker.
Oh, Robert Whitaker. No, you're right. I mean, yeah, but I'm saying he's at the table. He's one of those guys. He's in that conversation.
Fair. Speaking of which, who got booked recently is Vittori Dolidze.
Yeah, that's a cool fight. That's another opportunity for another guy to kind of get into this clubhouse, get a seat at the table. I mean, Dolidze gets a win over Vittori, then I mean, he's officially irrelevant, right? I mean, I think the fact that he got that fight booked proves that he's relevant. But we'll get to all the fights that just got announced. We'll have like a whole segment at the end of the show because, I mean, everybody and their dog is fucking fighting in March 2023. So
and we'll have to talk about the Ngannou situation. There's a lot to get into. But first,
so much.
Probably we hit these 6 prelims, I'd say, and then we can kick the main card into overdrive.
Yeah, yes, sir. And then, I'm not going to have too much to say about the first probably, I think, 4 fights. I mean, I'll have some kind of surface level, just things to add. This first fight, jerking the curtain, I was actually really stoked for. We got Oklahoma's own Jimmy Flick, returning, technically coming out of retirement. I think he's retired like 18 months or something, nothing crazy. Fighting Charles Johnson, who, people are high on, Took on Mikhaev, he's had some good performances. I thought this fight was good matchmaking as far as like flyweight, not the deepest division, not a ton of prospects that we like know and care about. Of the ones that we do know and care about, these are 2 that we would like to see fight. But I can't tell you too many unranked flyweights that I'd be like super excited to watch fight. And these are 2 of them.
I was definitely excited for Charles Johnson just based on the fact that like the dude's crazy athletic. I think they've kind of dogged him in his matchups in the sense of like they've given him crazy hard matchups for his first 2 fights. And he won his last one obviously. Lost to Mikhaev, which no shame in that. Or did he win his last one or did he lose in a split? I could be wrong about that. Let me see real fast before I make that mistake, because I love to make that mistake. But either way, Charles Johnson comes with this. He won the split decision against Jalga Zumagulov, who used to be ranked. So it's like he's been calling for a ranked fighter, and I think he's right to do that. You know what I mean? After that win, especially just because like Zumagulov is no slouch. So I thought the matchmaking was kind of messed up to begin with, is I guess what I'm getting at here. Because Jimmy Flick's coming out of 2 years of retirement and time off against a guy that's like literally a killer and was an LFA champion and has already shown that like he can be a top 15 guy with his skill set. So I already I thought Vegas was even off, and I know it's minus 350 to plus 290, but I kind of thought Vegas was off on that realistically. I thought this could have been a minus 490.
Wow. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I definitely have my Oklahoma colored glasses on. Definitely for Jimmy Flick. And that being said, I mean, this was a first round knockout. I do gotta say though, and even my wife agreed with me on this one. Earliest stoppage of all time. I mean, worst stoppage of all time. That was not a knockout. I'll die on that hill. We're coming out with spicy takes in 2023. Weak ass stoppage. Jimmy was fine. Early stoppage, weak stoppage. what the fuck was that? I'll leave it to you.
I put definitely an early stoppage. Although Jimmy Flick has to fight back. Like he literally wasn't doing anything, even on the feet, man. Like he just looked like he was shell shocked.
I feel you.
But also early stoppage. Like I'm not saying not early stoppage, but I'm just saying Jimmy Flick has to do something.
Yeah, and you're right. Maybe those shots look different at middleweight or light heavy or something, but like those shots just weren't doing anything. He was fine.
He was getting picked apart on the feet, I will say. And Charles Johnson.
Yeah, it wasn't looking good for him.
And Charles Johnson,
like a submission specialist that like, you let him get to the second round or whatever. You let this fight go on a little longer. You never know. You get him pulled out.
Yeah, and I just thought Jimmy Flick couldn't hang with Charles Johnson on the feet. Like I thought that was made pretty clear.
Oh, yeah.
And then Charles Johnson was obviously smart enough on the ground to not really engage with him in he kept posturing up and then dropping elbows, posturing back up, just giving him no space to like try and set up a submission or a reversal. So once again, high fight IQ, high athleticism, good speed, good power. I love Charles Johnson moving forward. He called for a top 15 guy. I think he deserves it, and I think Jimmy Flick did get robbed in the early stoppage. I think he was okay. So I'd like to see him fight again.
Yeah, I mean, the back end of flyweight's pretty stacked. I mean, I think the guy you maybe match him up with is Jeff Molina. Jeff Molina's had a few fights fall through. He was actually the one supposed to be fighting Jimmy Flick, and Johnson was the replacement for Molina. So Molina needs to fight, and granted, if he's healthy enough to. If he's not, then get rid of his ranking. I mean, you got Sumadarji sitting there at 12. Makayev's at 14, so that's what makes that a little bit difficult there. And then you got Ulanbekov at 15. You could do that matchup, but that's no fucking walk in the park for Johnson. So it's like, when he says he wants a top 15 guy, I mean, once again, tell us who. And, I mean, I guess it would have to be Molina. It's obviously not going to be Makayev. You could argue it should be Ulanbekov since he lost to Makayev and he shouldn't get a jump to line. I don't know. I mean, I think him and Sumadarji's probably a fun-ass fight.
I think him and Sumadarji's a super fun fight. That might be the one to make, but then it's like, if you do that, you got to give Makayev someone up there because you can't be giving him someone above Makayev when he has a loss to Makayev, in my opinion. Like, you can't just jump guys that you have losses to.
You know what? Now that we say that, Makayev just got a fight announced. I'm going to fucking look it up real quick. Makayev just got a fight announced. Who is it against? It's against somebody like a Contender Series guy. It's kind of a disappointing matchup. According to Makayev, it's because people are dunking him, and maybe that's true, maybe it's not. Yeah, well, you know what? It hasn't even made it to Tapology. Maybe it's some Instagram fake news. He announced something on his Instagram. I don't have my Instagram tab pulled up, but whatever. It's like an unranked Contender Series guy, if I'm not mistaken, which I don't think is what really anybody's trying to see from Makayev. But
yeah, that doesn't really make sense with like the way I thought the UFC was trying to build.
Watching it at the end of a party, trying to get like a head start on it. So I don't have too much to bring to the table on this one. I don't know. Do you have anything to bring? You wanted to mention about Argueta Aguirre. Takes place in men's featherweight. Just, I don't want to say two irrelevant guys, but definitely kind of the lower end of the featherweight division.
Man, so this felt like a super low end fight. Like guys, you literally don't know who they are. Argueta coming up in weight because he couldn't make it at 35, which no discredit. It's the deepest division there is. Also, Makayev's opponent is Jafel Filho. Which, who's that?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think it's some Contender Series guy. So yeah.
Just wanted to throw that out there, so Aguirre obviously making his debut undefeated, so they have some sort of belief in him. But do they have a lot? Because they gave him Dan Argueta, and Argueta's minus 490. Why is this guy in the UFC?
That's wild. That's exactly. If there's anybody that Dan Argueta's minus 490 over, the discrepancy.
Yeah, show me his opponent because they don't belong in the UFC.
You're right, man. You're right.
And that is essentially how this fight plays out.
Yeah, what? Did Argueta win every round?
Every round, 30-27, all judges, my card as well. Super snoozy wrestling battle that Aguirre would continue. And Aguirre would continue to try to reverse and then get himself just into a scramble and then lose based on the fact that he either wasn't technically sound enough in the transition or that he was not strong enough.
Yeah, this fight, listen, we can kind of keep it pushing just because I don't think either of these guys is like you could have a 3-hour podcast about just the featherweight division without even mentioning this guy's name.
I don't think
the way it is.
And if you said Dan Argeta's name, I couldn't have told you his weight class before this fight. So I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, and it's tough because a lot of guys start out in that position, and you string 3 or 4 wins together, and all of a sudden you matter. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Right. Well, yeah. My thing is, and also like it's not like when we saw Zalal and like he put on a good show, and we were like, okay, this guy like is a entertainer, performer, like is going out there trying to get finishes, what have you. More so, it's like this guy went out there, wrestled in a very boring fashion, and is recreating himself. So like, we'll see. Give it time.
Yeah, for sure, man. And then you have more flyweights up next. Kind of a juicy flyweight. Conversation we had on these prelims. We had Alan Nascimento, if I'm not mistaken, as part of the Charles Oliveira team, right?
Yeah. Oliveira's in his corner.
And then taking on Carlos Hernandez. He got the first round rear naked choke sub, which, you'd expect from a, Charles Oliveira coach guy. More flyweights, man, which, we love to see these divisions kind of be built out. We love deep divisions, kind of like they did, with men's bantamweight. And the bottom end of men's flyweight and as well as the top end, like flyweight in general, I feel like 2023 is going to be a hot year for men's flyweight.
I think so too, man. It's a division that is coming to life just based on like more guys are filling out the weight class finally. Hasn't been around the longest, obviously. And hasn't been the deepest, and they almost got rid of it with Demetrius Johnson, but once he got beaten by Cejudo, it kind of shook up the division, and ever since then, it's had, like, a pretty good resurgence, minus, like, this Moreno-Figueiredo 4 shit.
Well, see, that's what I'm stoked on, because, next weekend, it's over. It ends next weekend. Like, come hell or high water, good, bad, ugly, doesn't matter. So the division moves forward literally in 6 days, 5 days. The division starts to move forward. And then the future of it, you got Pantoja at 2. Kai Francis still around. Nicolau sitting out at 5. Amir Albazi surging through the ranks at 7. Chanel, ridiculous dog. Putting it together, kind of finally living up to the hype. Then you got guys like Mikhaev and Ulanbekov and all Johnson and all these guys at the back end that are all of a sudden make it interesting. And do you do Nascimento Johnson? I know it's not what Johnson wants, but fuck, it might not matter what he wants.
Might not matter what he wants, and also Nascimento did such a good job of like landing clean shots on the feet, dropping Hernandez, getting the ground control, getting to the back quickly, getting to the choke, and getting it done. Like it was all really well transitioned, a lot of control, good hand switch at the end whenever he went from here to here. All of it was nice. It was all technical. It was all sound. And credit to Hernandez because he did most of the right things. You could just tell he wasn't to that skill level.
And also, this got performance of the night. So, and I think this was Nascimento's debut, right? So, you debut the performance of the night. Like, the company's going to want to not necessarily do you favors, but I don't know, just move you along, can get you going in the right direction.
I think he's had one more fight in the UFC, though, right?
Maybe. Okay, I could be wrong.
Let me see. I think he's had one more before. Although I could be wrong about that. Okay, he's had 2. He's fought Ulanbekov and Hadley. And he lost to Ulanbekov in a split decision.
That's a tough schedule.
And he lost to Raulian Paiva at bantamweight in his Dana White Contender Series by split decision.
Okay, he's the guy that lost to Paiva. He's fought a pretty good schedule. He's pretty tested.
No doubt he's fought a good schedule, and also I'd say that the fact he moved down to flyweight to populate the division because he could make it whenever he had lost to Paiva at 35, and obviously Paiva's not a top 15 there, but he has a split decision loss to a guy that is top 15. I could see Charles Johnson having to fight Alan Nascimento for the guy that gets the shot at whoever's up next.
Yeah, especially Ulanbekov's on the schedule already. Yeah, for sure, man. And but I want to keep it pushing because we may have somebody that matters here at lightweight, which lightweight always matters. And you got another Polish guy named Mateusz. We got to get used to
Mateusz Rybicki.
That's the Magomedov of Poland. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like everybody's name of Mateusz. Rebeski.
Pretty sure it just means Matthew, so I get it. Common name here.
Yeah, for sure. I like it. No problem with that. I just feel like every Polish guy on the roster is Mateusz. And then Nick Fight taking on Nick Fiore. Like I said, lightweight division. Another massive money line. These prelims were littered with huge spreads, massive money lines.
This one felt super justified.
Yes, it did. I mean, Rebeski, physical freak, man. I mean, just strong as fucking shit. Looks it. He's stocky. He's wide chested, wide back.
He's 5'7". He's built like Volkanovski, man, but at lightweight. So I kind of think that's what Volk's going to look like at lightweight, which is crazy to say. Like, he's going to be all thickened out.
No, you're right, man. And it just fought so fucking sturdy. Just was the stronger man, had the power advantage, had the wrestling advantage.
Seemed to have the speed advantage and the strength advantage overall.
Had a really aggressive streak. I mean, he had a lot of success. I mean, Fiore was able to go the distance last, all 15 minutes, but it was all Rebeski. I'm pretty sure at least one judge scored a 30-26 if my memory.
Yeah, had the first round at 10-8, which I didn't have.
You know what? I didn't take notes for this one, but I remember thinking, like, I'm not mad at that. Like it was a dominant performance.
It was dominance, duration, and damage, I will say. Like, all three of the Ds were there, and I literally did debate it in the first round. I didn't think the damage was enough.
Fair. It just also, like, the sport of MMA, especially in the high ranks of the UFC, is, you have the respect of, like, anything can happen at any given moment. However, man, when I was watching that fight, man, I just was like, Rebeski's got this in the bag. Like, 3 minutes into watching this fight, I was like, Fiore's got nothing for him. Long night for Fiore incoming. And, I mean, Rebeski just was, which, like I said, I mean, I'm not saying Fiore is a world beater, but if Rebeski's, like, head and shoulders above him, I mean, I think we're saying, like, I mean, he could be a guy, man, especially, these Polish guys are coming, man.
Yeah, and the lightweight, I mean, it's not like there's not 25 elite lightweights, but I will say that, like, I'm not mad if they want to throw him, like, to a Bobby Green.
Yeah, the back end of lightweight is so fun right now. I mean, you got Grant Dawson at 15, Drew Dober 14, Money Moicano at 13. They still have Ismagulov at 12, who announced his retirement on Instagram. Got Dan Hooker at 11. So a lot of the back end of lightweight is stacking up. You got the other Mateusz up at 7. Like I said, it's hard to tell. I would love to see him against. You're right. I actually like your Bobby Green suggestion because I don't think anybody in the top, any of those guys that just named at the back end of lightweight rankings, like, really deserves, like, to fight down for a guy like him. And Bobby Green's down to fight anybody, and Bobby Green would be an interesting stylistic matchup because, I mean, Rebeski, you're right. He looked pretty quick against Fiore, but I don't know if he looks quick against Bobby Green.
Right. Right. Yeah, like, give him someone that can counter-strike with great hands that, like, also has good takedown defense. Like, make Rebeski really show it.
100%.
But also, I could see, like,
Bobby Green's a small. People think of Bobby Green as a small lightweight.
He's not. Yeah, he's not.
He's not.
Well, you could also do the Brad Riddell thing because they're about the same height, but I mean that's just like a.
Brad Riddell at the end of his last fight, he gave the speech about needing a bunch of time off or some shit. Or am I thinking of somebody else?
That does sound like Brad Riddell. Oh yeah, no, I think he's gonna retire. He said that he didn't even feel like fighting and shit.
He's out of the rankings and shit. So
yeah, I think
right.
he might be done.
So lightweight. There's a lot of studs at lightweight that he could fight, and I don't know. I just passed the eye test, I guess, is what I'm getting. Natalie said it's not strength of schedule. It's not that he did anything so outstanding or game-changing or revolutionary. Just passed that eye test of just looking like a guy. I mean, just from a physicality standpoint, from a kind of well-rounded standpoint, from a lack of fear, like willingness to engage, and just I don't know. I'm going to have my eye on him. I'll put it that way.
You know who else is an unranked lightweight near the back end of 15? Paddy Pimblett.
Well, Paddy on social media was saying that he has to have some surgery. He's in Thailand on vacation getting fat as shit. But apparently he needs a surgery. I do not like the way Patty's career is being handled on all fronts. I don't like the way Patty's handling his own career. I don't like the way the UFC's matchmaking him, and I don't like how like the whole trifecta of like the three things that come together to like make a fighter's career path. I'm just not fucking with any of it, and I guess I don't have to if it works in the end. But I just have a feeling this is going to end badly.
I'm pretty down on the Paddy Pimblett hype train. Like, I'm pretty much off of it at this point. I've seen him get hit too much against guys that shouldn't be able to hit him that way. I've seen him honestly talk his way into fights and kind of talk his way out of like actual real opponents, and like they're feeding him cans, and I'm just tired of it.
Wait, Bobby Green's beef.
He's cleaning the trash cans.
Meeting a new young homeowner for the first
Hold on, okay, sorry. TV's going off.
Shout out those young homeowners out there.
God, those.
In this economy?
Those commercials are great. It's the guy cleaning his trash cans. He's like, "You're cleaning your trash cans?" Anyway, yeah, point being, sorry about the interruption for all the folks that are just deeply embedded in our show right now. But, yeah, it's one of those things for Patty where, like, where does he fit at lightweight, man? Tony Ferguson? That'd be a fun fight. Give him an unranked guy.
No, I think it's one of the few fights you can do. I mean, maybe it Dan Hooker, but like Dan Hooker on a good day beats the dog shit out of Patty.
If Dan Hooker comes out and has the Dan Nurmagomedov Hooker performance, he's gonna beat Patty up.
But he also kind of lays eggs sometimes, so I don't hate that. Yeah, Tony Ferguson. I mean, I think that one makes a lot of sense for all the obvious reasons. The name value matches. You could have high card placement. It's somebody who we don't think at this point would probably beat the shit out of Patty. Probably a path for Patty to enter the rankings, but also like nobody can say it's a can. Ferguson makes a lot of sense, but also, I mean, I know we're just kind of defaulting to Bobby Green on a lot of these debates, but hey, I'm not mad at that one either. I'd like to see that for Bobby.
You know what I just thought about? What if the UFC takes the cop out and Patty gets the 15 ranking based on Ismagulov retiring?
You know what? I think Patty probably robbed himself of that happening by announcing this injury.
I don't know. That's a name they might like to lurk.
On face value, I don't.
Does that not seem like a Dana White move, though, to like kind of be like, hey, like put him at 15 so we can start doing this?
Yeah, it does. Well, but I'm not even mad if they do that, because if they do that, that means he has to fight somebody, even if it's Tony Ferguson.
Well, I think they're not going to keep paying him this amount of money to fight cans. If people like us are starting to be out on it, it's eventually going to be the wave.
Yeah, you can't just Jake Paul his way to the top for sure. But let's get to Claudio Rodero, Abdul.
Francis Ngannou's going to try to do that. Just side note, Francis Ngannou's going to Jake Paul his way to the top. Fucking pussy. Sorry, if you want to go ahead and introduce this fight.
Yeah, we got Claudio Rodero fighting Abdul Razak Al Hassan at middleweight. And you know what? Abdul Razak Al Hassan, you know, he notoriously has kind of a reckless style, not the cleanest fundamentals. And he kind of in his lead up to this, he was talking about he was going to try to clean a lot of that up. Apparently, he has a judo background that he's never used once in the octagon, and it's like. I felt like he kind of made a kind of concerted effort to kind of slow it down, clinch it up, not empty the gas tank, not shoot his load, not be reckless. We saw a much more measured Al Hassan, you know, in this fight. And, Ribeiro came out with kind of like a calf kick heavy approach, which was having a lot of success at first. The fighter just stuck with it. He kind of abandoned it, and it was his best weapon.
He kind of abandoned it toward the end of the first and started trying to kind of like go to war with him, and then did it for the start of the second, and that was clearly his demise.
Yeah, I thought if he would have stuck with the calf kicks, like at the first half of the first round, I was like, oh, Rivera's winning, and then he kind of just like laid off the calf kicks, which allowed Al Hassan to do what Al Hassan does. He was clenching him up, landing some elbows, landing some big shots, and you know, I ended up giving Al Hassan the first round. Kind of landed some big shots at the end of the round after clinching it up, but yeah, Rivera just kind of took his foot off the gas, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say that Ribeiro was fighting a pretty good fight to that point. You know what I mean? Like, I thought it was like pretty smart. Like you said, the calf kick approach was like a really good way to approach the fight. I also thought that, as far as the way that Abdul Al Razak Al Hassan was fighting, was like, yes, he's sorry, I'm getting this adjusted a little bit. Yeah, he's fighting a lot safer, a lot smarter, a lot more metered, a lot more measured. But that was kind of giving Ribeiro the openings to get those leg kicks off in the start. So, like you're saying, if Ribeiro just kept that game plan, I don't think Abdul Razak Al Hassan is able to do what eventually happens in the second round or even the end of the first round.
Yeah, end of the first round, he starts landing some power, like I said, and then start of round 2. I mean, this was not any, high level shit. He just started uncorking right hooks, like just right hook.
Tagging him with them too.
Right hooks. And just kind of coming over top of his guard, coming on
just like right on the outside, yeah.
Yeah, and just couldn't take him. I mean, Halson is known for his power. I think he has a 100% finish rate, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, when he starts to land and he's able to land and he's able to, the second round and he still has a little gas in the tank and he's still in the fight. I don't know. And you can tell he's super pissed about being known for that Buckley knockout. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You can tell, like, he's pissed about that. So, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, Al Hassan, at the end of the day, is a pretty, like, rudimentary fighter, but he does have, like, very good power for the division. He is starting to fight with a higher IQ, which, you love to see areas where fighters improve, And I feel like he's gotten better. I mean, is he a world beater? No. Is he even probably close to the top 15? Probably also no. But is he getting better? Yes, and I think that's all you can ask from a guy.
And is he a fun guy for the weight class? Absolutely.
Yeah, and a great guy to test out young prospects, you know what I mean? The back end, at this point, if he did get a fight, Darren Till's ranked 15, and I'm not saying that fight makes any sense.
That's a lot of fun.
If the Till can't beat Al Hassan, like, what are we doing here? And
yeah, honestly.
that'd be a huge opportunity for a guy like Al Hassan. I'm literally just kind of pulling that out of thin air. I'm not saying I predict for you that happens or that I even think that it should happen. But if it did happen, I don't think you can say that it doesn't make sense. And that it would be a lot of fun and that I think it would tell us a lot about where both of these guys stand.
No, I fully agree, man. And like you said, for Al Hassan, kind of like an open field of matchups, right? Like, there's no one specific that I feel like you even would have to go for with him because he's like just fun stylistically, fun to watch, full entertainment. Don't have to give him someone ranked, but you can.
Exactly.
He's kind of in like the sweet spot of matchmaking. Like, you can't really go wrong because you could even give him like a DWCS like highly touted prospect at this point. Like, he's in between all phases of the weight class.
Like, I think he's proved that he's UFC caliber. Like, he's not like full blown like fighting for a roster spot.
And he's getting better.
He's getting better, but it's not like, oh, we got to look out for this guy. Everybody's ducking him. Like, but like I said, you could do some fun stuff with Till. You could use him as a gatekeeper for a prospect. Like you said, kind of can't miss with what happens next for Al Hassan.
Yeah, no doubt, man. But if you want to keep pushing,
Ribeiro, honestly, pretty dauber down because,
yes and no.
Hear me out. We said some nice things about Al Hassan, right? Pretty much held him in a higher regard than I think some people hold him in. And it's like, kind of, if we're going to just be honest, objective here, like, if you can't figure out Al Hassan's very rudimentary style, are you UFC caliber? You know what I mean? Like,
that's a fair point.
If you're getting, at no point, besides those first couple calf kicks, he pretty much, got his ass whooped the rest of the fight. Even if it was somewhat snoozy. It was snoozy because Al Hassan wanted it to be snoozy. He couldn't do nothing about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I will say that, for him to come out with an effective game plan and execute it for at least half a round, there's something to be built on there. Now, whether or not he lacks discipline in the fight style and he gets cracked once and is the angry guy where he's like, oh, I'm gonna respond and gets baited into going to war. That used to be Dustin Poirier's problem at the start of his career, if I do recall correctly. So there's always room for growth. But I will say that, yeah, Ribeiro needs to be more disciplined in his game plan because it was working at the start. He just abandoned it for no reason.
He abandoned it. Yeah, I think we both feel the same way about that. Like, this fight looks a lot different if he stays on that calf kick, which helps control the range, which limits Alhassan's movement. It takes a little bit off that power. Like, all the things that ended up working for Alhassan in the end, if he stays on those calf kicks, it diminishes all of that.
Right. And, like, if he fights for a decision, like, if he can get to the, mid to latter part of the second round, who knows if Alhassan has that same power or speed or movement,
Notoriously suspect gas tank.
And if you keep chopping legs, by the time the third round hits, if that's already happening in the second, I mean, you're going to walk away with the third.
And but on that note, we'll keep it pushing because, we like to call ourselves the Bantamweight Breakdown. And, bro, I got a Bantamweight boner.
Oh, you're on the Basharat, the Bash Bros.
I do the Basharat train, bro.
I like them too. I think they're highly marketable too. Like, I think they present themselves so well.
They look fucking good. I mean, and this Mendonce kid, he's no
This kid's tough. This kid's tough.
Athletic, it presents some problems. Yeah, we got a
Mateusz.
There's Polish Mateusz and Brazilian Mateusz.
One has a Z, one doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. But Mateusz Mendonce, 23-year-old Brazilian. I think another guy that trains with Oliveira and the boys.
Do believe that's true.
Mistaken.
Was this his debut, Mendonca?
Sweet blue hair. It was his debut. He's a Contender Series guy, so I've actually seen him fight.
Bro, what a tough debut.
Well, this fight was gas, bro. We had 10-0 Mendonce against 13-0 Basharat. Someone's O has to go.
It's crazy to do it this early, though. Am I wrong? Because I think Basharat deserved a better fight, and I think Mendonca deserved a fight that was, not someone that already proven.
Kind of the glass half empty side of it. The glass half full side of it is it got Mendonce a good card placement. It got him a pretty decently well-known opponent.
That's a good point. Didn't consider card placement. That's a great point.
So it's not like there was nothing in it for him. I thought, and I mean, I'm sure he wasn't intimidated. If you're 10-0 fighting a guy who's 13-0, I don't know. I'm sure he didn't feel like it was a bad matchup. I mean,
I would also say too that if you're going to make your debut against a guy that is highly touted, and whether you lose or win, if you can go to the decision, you're going to get a lot more credit from the UFC. Either way.
And hear me. Also, would you rather debut against a stud like Basharat, where if you lose, nobody's going to really hold it against you?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I'm saying.
If you debut against an old vet on his way out and lose, it's gonna be like, oh, maybe this guy's not UFC caliber. I mean, I know these fighters aren't really factoring in what happens if they lose when they accept these matches, but kind of a part of it if you look at career wise.
I think the realest and best fighters probably do consider why they can't lose the fight. Not that they.
To Basharat, nobody's going to be like, oh, this guy can't hang. I think people are going to come away from it saying, hey, Basharat's damn fucking good. And he hung with him.
Yeah, well, let me ask you this. As someone that played football, and I guess this is a good way to look at it because I never thought this way, so it's interesting to think about. But did you ever go into any weeks, and looking at your standings, obviously at conference or division or whatever it may be, and you ever thought to yourself, well, if we lose this game, we sit here after we lose? I never thought that way. I always thought, where do we get to if we win?
I'm trying to think back, it's been some years now. I'll be real. I think the weeks that you're playing a Jinx or a Broken Arrow or something like that, you maybe think.
Okay, this is gonna be a tough game.
We're not dead. Our season's not over if we lose.
Like measuring stick games.
Because there's a difference between being a must-win,
That's what I mean.
Think that way in the playoffs, regular season games, all right, we're still making the playoffs if we lose. It's all right.
I guess that's where fighting's different, though, right? Because every fight's kind of a playoff, kind of.
I mean, yeah, every fight's a must-win if you're trying to go to the top.
Yeah.
If you're trying to cash checks or just put UFC fighter in your Instagram bio, then all right, maybe not. But there's certain guys who have a legitimate, not shot, but legitimate aspirations of making a run, and I think that's what separates those guys. Like a Makayev from just like a random flyweight, like you know what I mean?
Or like a
Stuff
Derek
like
Lewis from like maybe Pavlovich. Like Pavlovich wants the belt. Lewis wants to get paid.
Yeah.
It's very different how they look when they're in the octagon and it matters.
For sure, man. But I mean, I had easy to score. Round one was competitive, and one of the judges gave it to Mendoza. I don't hate it, because Mendoza got 3 takedowns, but Basharat got.
He was up immediately. Like the control time was nothing.
I kind of factored that in as a positive for more than I did as like that was a sweet takedown for Mendoza. But Mendoza was mixing it up. He landed some pretty stiff shots. I thought Basharat was just a lot cleaner, a lot more active. I thought Basharat actually landed the biggest shots, which is saying something because Mendoza kind of fancied himself a power, striker.
Basharat has good angles, man. Like the way he cuts angles and is able to kind of hang out in the pocket sometimes and fire back. I think he is so good, and his level changes too, which he got to later in the fight, more so than the first round. But like, Basharat's dangerous.
Well, at least speaking of like football analogies and shit, Basharat just reminds me of a quarterback who just never gets rattled. Goes quick, whatever, comes back to throws a touchdown. Because he'll get tagged. He's not a perfect fighter. He'll make a mistake. He'll get caught. He'll lose a position. But he always like comes back and just corrects it. Just he never really gets flustered. Never panics. Just corrects the mistake, rights the wrong.
Well, and when you watch his,
he's like very like solutions oriented. Like I said, when he does get caught or when he does lose a position, he seems to just they said not be just focused on like solutions based. Like, all right, how do I get out of this position? Like, what's the next step here?
And when you watch his post fight interviews, he's super cerebral when he fights. Like the things he says lead me to believe that like. He really, like, seriously considers every opponent he fights, every situation that he's going to do, their strong suits, his strong suits, and how those are going to play out, like, over the course of 15 minutes. Like, he sounds like he has assessed his fighting style against who he fights very often, and I really love that about him.
Well, and, like, well-rounded is a term that's probably thrown around too much by guys like us, but, I mean, the guy's well-rounded as shit. I mean, the striking, the only thing I guess that is, if you want to call it concerning or maybe like a box not being checked, he doesn't have like scary power, but he has like that like accurate technique power, kind of like Izzy Adesanya power, you know? Like,
right, and sometimes that's like, just as effective as like the dangerous part about it.
And I mean, maybe not. I mean, he does have subs, I believe, on his career. I mean, so he can grapple, but like the defensive grappling, the defensive wrestling, super impressive. I mean, he's a taller guy. Like the frame for the division's impressive. I mean, this brings him to 14-0. I mean, there's a big difference between being 8-0 and being 14-0. You know what I mean? Like 14-0. I mean, that's getting pretty hard to like deny. And I know we always talked about how deep the bantamweight division is. I loved Felder's interview of him because he really like twisted his leg to get him to finally say someone's name. Because at first Basharat was doing the whole. I mean, the Basharat goes on to win. 2 judges give it 30-27. 1 judge gives it 29-28. We no need to go round by round. Except round 1 was the only round that was competitive, and in my opinion, it wasn't like.
I didn't think it was close enough for Mendoza to get that round.
Yeah, me neither. I definitely thought that judge that gave it to him was tripping, but I also was like, at least they gave him 1. Like,
hey,
you know what I mean? It made sense.
If I told you this, if it wasn't Doug Crosby, what judge do you think it was?
Adelaide Bird.
Bingo, got it. It's too easy. There's 3 terrible judges that should never do this sport again, man.
So Felder, you know, he's doing the in-cage interviews, and he's like, you know, who you want to call? He's really trying to throw him out with you. Basharat, you need to be a humble guy. Pretty, not the most brash guy. So at first he's like, I deserve to be a ranked fighter. I'm fighting these killers, but they're unranked, and it's a lot of risk. He lays out a lot of good arguments.
Yeah.
I like how he speaks.
That's what I was meaning whenever he's super cerebral. Like, he understands the entirety of the positioning he's within inside his division.
Yeah, he's no Corey Sandhagen. So he called for a ranked fighter. Felder gives him like one last alley-oop. Like, come on, dog. Like, say someone's name. You're gonna get it if you say it. Just fucking say it. And
He's like, oh fuck, all right.
Which I both love and hate. So as a fan, love. I want to see that fight. Now, Gutierrez, is that the fight? Fight up, so there's not too much of an argument against fighting back. I do think if you're Chris Gutierrez, you probably had your eyes set on like a little bit bigger game, if you will.
Do you deserve it when you got given the Frankie Edgar fight?
That's another argument to be made. So I personally love it. Well, if you're Basharat, though, people are saying that's like the hardest fight.
Ooh.
Amount of like, I'm saying not the hardest fight, but the hardest fight for the least amount of like reward. Like high risk, low reward. Like, is your average casual gonna like really care if you beat Chris Gutierrez? I will.
Yeah, but if you get top 12, you really like you can't fight a non-ranked opponent at that point.
You're not wrong.
Like,
is this a hot take of saying that Jack Shore's a bigger fight than Gutierrez, even though he's 2 spots lower ranked? Like maybe higher card placement, maybe bigger amongst casuals.
I don't know. I think Gutierrez got a lot of negative hype, which is good either way. But he was such a villain toward Frankie Edgar, like telling him, like, I'm going to knock you out, bro. Like, your career ends with me, and I don't like you. Like, saying shit like that to a guy like Frankie Edgar that's so beloved, like, I think he garnered haters. And haters will sell tickets all the same as fans.
God, I love bantamweight. That Saeed Nurmagomedov at 15, I think that fight also makes sense against Basharat. Again, I don't think Nurmagomedov's the kind of guy to say no, or is in the position to say no, or has the ego to say no, or has the, like, he's kind of a Sandhagen guy. Like, I feel like he doesn't really, like, pay attention to, like, the rankings and where he sits and all that.
Interestingly enough, too, I think that's maybe his best matchup in that 12 to 15 range for Basharat.
They're built very similar. Pretty similar skill sets, I'd say.
Right, and I think Yanez is the worst.
Yanez, when he has a fight booked, I forget against who, but he's fighting somebody.
Yeah, no, he fights, God, is it Pedro Munoz or Ricky Simone or... Who the hell is it? Let me look it up, because, like, it's a great fight. I got it right here. It's, oh, what the hell? Doesn't say it's booked. All right, what do you got? It's not on UFC site yet.
1 second. Adrian Yanez. He is booked against Rob Fabrant.
Yeah, Fabrant, number 6. That's right. He got a huge boost.
I'm stoked on that. We're big Yanez guys over here. But
also, don't forget, Yanez is the guy that beat the shit out of Hickey. That's crazy, is it not? Like, what if he beats Fabrant, beats the shit out of him, and gets to top 6 in the world?
Oh, that's crazy. Also, Fabrant's huge. He was cornering a lightweight, if I'm not mistaken. It was like the same exact size. I forget. It was during this card. He cornered a guy in this card. I forget who it was.
You know what? Keep that in mind, because I'm gonna have a question for you come main event time about Nassourdine Imavov that I might be crazy for asking, but keep that in mind.
All right. But are you right? All right, so we hold the bantamweight division in high esteem, and we're about as tuned in with the back side of the bantamweight division as really any show out there. I'll go ahead and say that. I don't give a fuck. I feel confident in saying that. We spend a lot of time, focusing on bantamweights and lower range bantamweights.
Helwani's about the only other guy that gives him the same amount of credit as we do, and we've been on that shit way before him. Fuck you, Ariel.
But you're with me in saying that Basharat's up there with these top 15 guys. Like,
He needs a top 15 guy. His skill set is there. His cerebral game, like his readiness for his opponents, like he's there in all facets.
A lot of studs, and there's a lot of good, even unranked bantamweights. But I think Basharat's right up there.
Hey, before we get off these prelims, because we honestly got these fights pretty quick. No offense to the fighters, but they were kind of one-way fights for the most part. What do you do with Ricky Simone next? Where do you like him to fight next? Because I think he is one of the few specialists that remain at that weight class, so it's very interesting.
You know what I think you do? Not because this is a fight I want to see, not because I think it. The two people left without a dance partner. Pedro Munoz and Ricky Simone.
It's kind of how I feel too.
It makes sense, 9 versus 10. So
Especially after Munoz's bullshit last outing.
Nobody can be too butthurt. I mean, Simone has been pretty inactive, so even though I like Simone and I want to see good things happen for Simone, and I think Simone's a problem, fighting once a year, you don't get the most leverage as far as like getting to call your own shots and getting to earn these super special opportunities.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to stand on a soapbox and say that you deserve something when you only fight that often.
Exactly. Pedro Munoz is kind of that classic gatekeeper. I mean, that's what got O'Malley the Jan fight. So.
Oh, you mean the fight he won?
Yes, exactly. I mean, you got Song Yadong sitting there coming off the Sandhagen L. You can do some fun stuff there. You got Cruz coming off an L.
Yeah, all right, but let me ask you, like Cruz and Simone, I love that fight. That fight's fun as hell.
That's awesome.
But let me ask you this. Is Song Yadong and Simone fun?
It's probably a Ricky Simone takedown fest, but
yeah,
hey, I'm fine with it because I think Song Yadong is a little bit of a fraud and has been done a few favors, and there's a lot of guys in the bantamweight division that I think beat Song Yadong.
I also think he snuck up on a few people and has been able to keep that ranking based on sneaking up on guys in the start.
Because, I mean, if I'm talking about back-end strikers, I mean, Yanez, Gutierrez, even Umar, those guys over Song Yadong. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't think it is.
Oh, I like all of them over Song Yadong. Honestly, the back end of 135 right now, with how active those guys are, I think they might put the work on 8 through 11 is in danger, or 8 through 10.
6 through 9 seems fraudulent.
Oh, that's what I mean to say. Yeah, 6 through 9. What am I saying?
Cruz, Pedro Munoz. Now that speaks to the depth of the bantamweight division because none of those guys are slouches. All those guys are dogs. You know what I'm saying? All those guys have done a lot in the organization. But all the guys behind them, I would love to see with that single digit. The Umars of the world, the Yanez's of the world, the Chris Gutierrez of the world. We just talked about Basharat. I mean, I happen to not be the biggest Shore guy, but he has a fan base. He's doing some things. I mean, Said Nurmagomedov is an interesting matchup against anybody in the top.
You know what?
This
is unfair as hell. But like anyone with the last name Nurmagomedov already gets a huge boost. And those guys have carried the division. Like that's what I'm saying. And they're not related, but they're family friends. Like Said grew up down the street from Umar.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he's part of the squad. No, man, that's what's tough. Because Ricky Simone's probably the best wrestler in the whole fucking list. I mean, until you get to Davishvili and Aljo, I mean, if you want to say Cruz, you're not wrong.
Well, no, that's
he's
so.
Also at a point of his career.
That's why I asked you, like, what do you think about the Simone thing? Because he's the only specialist that's not in the top 3.
He can stand and bang too, though.
Kinda. He's just really tough, and then level changes and re-enters and gets the takedown because you get overconfident that he's going to strike with you.
Munoz, like, do you consider Munoz a striker, a grappler? Like,
he's a BJJ black belt with good hands.
He's just so mid.
He's mid everywhere except his jiu-jitsu is good.
Yeah.
But you never see it because he's always getting knocked out.
And then Fall Braun. I'll say, that matchup is impeccable for both guys. They're very similar guys. I just get nervous because if you're telling me they're the same guy, but one's way bigger.
It's also scary, too, that Rob Font, if you let him get going, he does a lot better than if you step on his throat.
Gets touched.
Oh, he loves to get beat the fuck up in the first round and then lull you into a sense of, like, I'm going to beat him up, and then he slips a punch and knocks you out. That's his whole shit.
Bob Braun is like, nobody talks talks about it, but he's like the Pereira of the bantamweight division. He's huge.
He's massive.
So big.
Dude, I think he walks around at like 165, 170 by his own admission. Like, he's Aljo size. Like, he does the same shit Aljo does.
Same with Aljo. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, what? Cheeto Sandhagen? Is that what's booked right now?
Yeah. Which,
That's
no.
a fucking karate movie.
Is that right? Is it Cheeto Sandhagen? Yeah, you're right. It is. It is. Which,
That's a karate movie.
which both guys don't deserve that fight. Sandhagen arguably does, because I think he just needs to fight anyone, because, like, at this point he's gotten his opportunities, and now he has to just, like, literally get, like, a 4-fight win streak within the top, like, 6 to do it, which sucks.
What do you mean? I'm here for it.
I don't think Cheeto deserves that, man. Cheeto should get to fight up. He's always having to fucking fight back.
Well, you're not wrong.
And why?
You're not wrong.
He's one of 3 fighters to do what?
But,
Never be knocked
would you
down
rather
ever.
see him fight Davishvili? I wouldn't. I'd rather see him fight Sandhagen.
I'd rather see him fight Jan
Jan's being a little weird little bitch man right now. So
than the O'Malley matchup.
I think that they're saving that.
Why that hasn't been ran back is beyond, well, saving it. I don't think either of them beat Cejudo.
I think they're saving it.
I guess. It's tough.
Let's
You know-
see, you ever upset the prelims? Or should look
I was going to say, they could slide in and save a co-main event on a pay-per-view that a belt falls off of. They really could. 1 versus 4 is a
Yeah,
co-main, those
or-
two. You really could.
Tell me they don't have a backup fighter because they're so confident Cejudo can make 35 or Aljo can make 35. Either one of those motherfuckers.
Yeah, those fat bastards.
Huge. And like all Aljo does is tweet how he doesn't want to fight and how he doesn't want to, like, he needs more time, blah 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 blah. That's all he talks about.
Bruh, he
Cejudo
tweets
hasn't
so
been
much.
away for 3 years. So
Dude.
I think honestly, I think Sugar Sean's going to be the backup fighter. Now whether they advertise that and publicize that or not, I'm pretty fucking sure. And if not, they're dumb. If they don't have Sugar Sean as a backup fighter or Cheeto as a backup fighter, or
Okay.
Davishvili as a backup fighter, I mean, they better have some fucking buddy because they have 2 guys that can barely make weight.
All right, well, hold on. We're at 52 minutes. Let's take a couple more minutes because I want to ask you a question that has to do with these fights, right? With the Cejudo thing and the Aljo situation. Just we'll wrap up bantamweight and then we can call it. But I do want to wrap it up proper. So,
Bantamweight breakdown.
yes, sir. We're gonna get a full one right here from top down. So, essentially, my understanding is that Aljo's gonna go fix his fucking partially torn biceps tendon that he's apparently been fighting with, and all good, whatever. And then he also was trying to say that Cejudo wouldn't accept the fight at the right amount of time. Like, he said, fight me by March 4th, or I'm going to get my biceps tendon repaired. And then Cejudo kind of, like, wavered on it, so then he was like, fuck it, I'm going to get it repaired. And then, like, pushed it out. So it's this weird conflicting story. And then Cejudo, who the fuck knows, he doesn't say shit. And then O'Malley's sitting there like, what can I get next? And then Aljo tweets back at him and says, if Cejudo won't fight me by March 18th or whatever it is, then, like, yeah, I'll fight you later. And it's like, I don't understand. What is Aljo saying? Like, does he just say anything?
First off, and love this Aljo Cejudo fight. Like, first off, both guys get on my nerves. First off, both guys I'm not super confident will make weight. There's the injury issue lingering overhead. You want to know what my hot take is? Which is not the kind of hot takes I want to make or are fun to listen to or fun to talk about, but my hot take might be that fight never fucking happens. Like I said, whether it's the injury, whether it's Cejudo missing weight, whether it's everybody agreeing to contracts and money, I think there's a lot of hurdles and a lot up in the air, probably more than the UFC is letting on for that Aljo Cejudo fight. And so I think that's why you're not hearing mum's the word on O'Malley. I mean, you haven't heard any rumors, nobody's mentioned O'Malley's name.
Well, he was tweeting at him, like, asking, like, can I fight you if Henry can't? And Aljo literally told him, like, yeah, you can.
It seems like a three-way thing at the top.
But then Cheeto was tweeting at him, too.
Cheeto has a fight book. If he really, like, and I'm glad he has a fight book, But by accepting the Sandhagen fight, he took himself out of the debate. Like,
That's a pretty fair point. That's a pretty fair point. By
No,
signing that contract, he fucked himself. I'll give you that. That's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
Group of guys, you have. I mean, Peter Yan and Billy, they have to fight each other, right? They have to.
Bro, and they hate each other so much, and it's such a good fight.
Like, that's happening. Either Jan's retiring or that's happening.
That one has to happen. Like, I just have to have that fight. Now, on the flip side of things, let me just ask you: Cejudo doesn't make the fight. Do you put O'Malley in for it?
Yeah, you do.
Do you? Okay. Okay. Now let's keep it going here. Let's just keep running.
O'Malley doesn't get super big. He can make weight. In a couple
True.
of
That's a great point. Now run with it here. How does he do against Aljo?
You know what?
Not good.
Before the Yan fight, I would have said not good. Early striking is like bad. Like, and I'll die on that hill, especially juxtaposed with the other bantamweight striker heavy division.
But he knows it's bad.
Yeah, I mean, but Sean's been proven hard to take down, man. And
He is that table style build.
yeah, I think it could potentially look like some Adesanya shit.
Damn, that'd be crazy. And then obviously, if that happens and Cheeto wins, like I think he will against Sandhagen, you obviously book that for the title and let the pay-per-views just sell off the fucking shelves.
Exactly.
Which, fuck you,
like,
ESPN, raising the price again this year.
Fuck that. But there's a couple things here. If Cejudo wins that bantamweight belt, what if he retires? If Sterling wins the bantamweight belt, he has to have surgery. You could do Cheeto O'Malley interim belt. Like I think the Cheeto O'Malley interim belt is like still not off the table.
You think the UFC has just masterminded this the whole way up, where they're gonna get Cheeto O'Malley almost no matter what at like a great price?
I believe so, and I think that the possibilities for it being interim are up there. Or if Aljo vacates and goes up to fight Volk at 45, which has been whispered and rumored. I mean, I said Cejudo. I mean, does anybody think Cejudo's fighting 6 more times? No. I mean, he could, if he wins the belt, he could, pull a GSP and kind of retire, vacate the belt. There's a lot of scenarios still on the table. Like I said, I mean, if Merab just keeps refusing, like if Aljo has the belt and Merab beats Yan, what do you do there? Beat Sandhagen. I mean, he's put himself, right there. I mean, it happens. An interim title happens. I mean, there's Cheeto's right there,
Yeah, it's
kind of can't go wrong. You can go wrong with it. Sterling's a whack champ, and Billy has this weird shit going on. So, that's the only thing that makes bantamweight not fun. And Peter Yan being on the fence right now. Like, everything else is the most fun.
No, I pretty much agree with you, man. I mean, I think that's essentially how bantamweight's going to break down. I mean, I'm glad I talked to you about it because it sounds like the UFC has essentially masterminded this with the conditions that O'Malley could beat Yan. Because if that couldn't happen, none of this could be as good as it is. But with that happening, the way they've set the field, they can't lose.
Yeah, I think the only way they lose is if Sterling just holds on to that belt.
Yeah, which... But, if he beats Cejudo, if he beats O'Malley, if he keeps doing that, he's going to get fans. He'll get me as a fan if he can keep doing shit like that.
You're like me. You're right. That's happened before. I mean, Leon Edwards.
Sometimes you just got to respect that greatness.
I mean, I'm a huge Ferreira guy these days. Like, just what he was able to pull off. And you learn to like these guys, right? Charles Oliveira, they do enough, and exactly, they win us over.
Yeah, Oliveira's a perfect example of man, I hated him when he used to be a quitter, and then he just continued to not quit and continued to beat guys and continued to defy odds, and I was like, I want to fucking love this guy.
Yes, sir. Well, yeah, that wraps up the prelims. I think this is episode 115 of the Beefy Boys Breakdown. I sure hope this audio sounds better for y'all out there. Sorry for the Prime Cuts audio. I was experimenting with a new mic, and it bit us in the ass big time. Big disaster there. But yeah, check out the rest of the videos on the channel. You can subscribe. We're every fight, every card. We haven't missed 115 cards, and we'll be back with the main event here shortly.
Yes, sir. I will see you in just a minute.